So Tiff just illuminated something for me. I started my career as a lawyer and then worked in politics and came here. And the consistent theme seems to be I work for people who think of big problems and then hand them off to me. So I'm going to have to try to find my next job where I get to think of the big problems and find other people to whom pass those off. So knowing how the audience typically reacts when we pick 5 clusters out of all of the clusters, first let me start with I love you all. All of the clusters that we have here in Ontario have the potential to be amazing, but these are the 5 we picked, as Tiff said, both from their size and their scope and what we can learn from them. And as we go through these 5, I'd ask you to cast your mind back to that chart that we started at the beginning of the 4 actors, as well as some of the factors that Porter brings forward in his diamond analysis. I heard at least 3 conversations in the hallway on the way in where it sounds like the question that the audience wants answered is chicken or the egg. Do clusters start with government policy, or do clusters begin and then government rides in and helps them facilitate? And fortunately for you, the answer is yes. I think if you go back to some of the Porter analysis, local demand that drives up excellence, that drives up increased skilled labor, that then produces the supports and the competition, is really what you'll see amongst these 5 clusters as a consistent feature. As all Ontario presentations have to start, we start with the Automotive Cluster. This is one that has obviously driven our economy for a long, long time. We obviously had a bit of a blip in which Tiff was involved back in 2008, where both the province and the country decided to make sure we held on to this large manufacturing sector. I think what's interesting here, and one of the things you can see, is the numbers coming out of Windsor in particular. When you think about proximity to the supply chain, particularly the customer base, and the other providers in the United States, the number kind of jumps off the page a little bit. It's one you didn't think that the disparity would be so great between Windsor and other locations. And obviously you have the Toyota, the home of Toyota, and Linamar in the Guelph and the Kitchener-Waterloo area. One of the things that you'll see that I'll take from my old job, so I used to work for the province, and often you'd have people come in and say from various municipalities and regions across the province, well, we just want to be like Kitchener-Waterloo. Give us the Kitchener-Waterloo plan. It's as if there was a glass case, break it in case of desire to grow your economy. And I think there's a lot to learn from Kitchener-Waterloo, but one of the things that comes clear in the report, and I would encourage you to think about, is you don't replicate clusters. There's lessons you can learn from them, but it's not as if you can just pick the lessons learned, the model learned there, and build Kitchener-Waterloo in a different location. As I said, we'll start with a president of a university who happens to be the future Governor General of Canada, an incredibly forward-thinking person, also have a global company on the verge of exploding, and a school that has an actuarial history and therefore has an incredible co-op program. If you have those 3 things, then good luck. I think you can be the next Kitchener-Waterloo. This is obviously something that this sector has driven a lot of our economy and continues to grow, and then has a lot of the subsector coming forward. It'll be interesting to see how this sector reacts to the move of the province on the electrical vehicle side, and that will obviously have an impact on some of these job numbers. The next sector we looked at was communications and equipment services. Obviously, again, the clusters being focused in Toronto and Kitchener-Cambridge-Waterloo triangle. One of the things that will come clear through here, and I'll give a bit of a teaser to some of our recommendations, there seems to be an increasing need to have a stronger link from a transportation and infrastructure perspective between the Kitchener-Waterloo area and Toronto. The job numbers just really do stand out, as well as the clusters that happen. And this is one of the more competitive environments as well, where the competition between the local companies for local demand and then growing to international demand has really driven the excellence and the growth. Next, financial services. Again, this is going back to some of the conversations I heard in the hall. This is not one that we decided at one point that we were going to grow one of the strongest clusters in the world. It has happened through a number of factors. Number one, some excellent providers here in the city, in particular in Toronto. There is some of the sector in Toronto, in Ottawa, particularly more in some of the insurance sector. Toronto is home to more than 4,000 companies in the financial services cluster, which employ more than 145,000 workers. One of the live questions that we always have, and I think the Toronto Financial Services Association has done a particularly outstanding job of representing this sector. But we, as a people, are often trying to figure out what we can do more to expand this sector. I think it's something that we as an institute want to try to delve back into, because the answer of, well, less regulation, while seems to be the most popular answer from the sector, perhaps is not always the most palatable from a public sector perspective. So something we'll have to try to tackle on the go forward. Next, we chose this one mostly because I'm from St. Catharines and I have to go home every once in a while. No, this is a fascinating sector and one that grew up from the ground. The tourism and the winery sector in particular in the Niagara region. This is one where the brand of the region and the attractions of the region started the cluster rather than any particular economic impetus. It has become the host of accommodations, entertainment, sporting events, and tourism services and attractions. It's based on its ability to draw visitors. Increasingly, this is an area that has suffered from a lack of infrastructure. If you've ever had the pleasure of trying to get down to the Niagara region to do something that no boy in Niagara ever wants to do, which is pick berries, I'm always baffled by Torontonians who say, let's go to the U-Picks this weekend. I literally spent my entire youth avoiding that job. But I guess now it's something we romanticize, and I encourage you to do so we can grow the cluster. But getting down to Toronto and crossing the border to Niagara and crossing the border in particular are becoming increasingly challenging. If this is a sector we want to continue to grow, it's one we'll have to take a look at. And then some of the moves recently by the province on liberating alcohol in the province could have an impact on this as well. Local wines as well as craft beers are starting to grow quite a bit. Lastly, the marketing, design, and publishing, one that we don't often think of, but Toronto is the home. It's a classic Porter analysis. There is a strong local demand. It is the home of publishing, particularly on the eastern side of Canada, and has driven up a lot of demand and need here in Toronto area. And then you add in Ryerson and OCAD in particular. And I'll throw in U of T because I'm obliged to make sure that the employees that are being driven out of this neighborhood are incredible and have provided this sector with a really high-functioning labor force.